Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my humble abode. This time around, we're going to talk about working with packages in RStudio. Okay, so for the upcoming workshop, we're going to be working with a few different packages as we go through some cool examples. And what packages are collections of functions that do stuff and objects that we can do stuff to out there in the world. So one of the great things about the R software, the R language in general, is that it's open source and folks can take that source code, modify it, or write their own and distribute it as they see fit. So there are a lot of crazy people like me out there who are writing, super neat little functions or big giant functions that do things, and we can put them out there for the rest of the world to use, which is fantastic because it saves the rest of us or each other a whole lot of time that we might rather be spending, let's say hanging out with our kids, making dinner, or who knows, grading an exam. I'm not sure what you're into. Hopefully, it's not one of those things. There are just a handful of packages that we're going to work with for the workshops. For the introductory workshop, we're really only going to work with packages from the tidyverse. The tidyverse is a really cool name for a package that contains a bunch of other packages. All right, and we're talking about maybe a dozen or so packages that are directly associated with the tidyverse. So this allows us to load up a whole bunch of functionality in just one line of code, really. But first, before we can use these packages, we need to be able to install them. In order to do that, I'm going to show you how to use the packages browser in RStudio to get the tidyverse here onto your computer and then load it into your active R session. So if I want to go out and install the tidyverse, I'm first going to click on my Packages tab, and then I'm going to hit the Install button. This should bring up a context menu for you that's going to ask you where you'd like to install the package from, what package, where you would like to have it installed to on your computer, that is a library location, and whether or not you'd like the dependencies installed. So the default repository for this is going to be the CRAN, or the Comprehensive R Archive Network. This hosts all the quote-unquote official R packages, all R packages, of which I think there's somewhere around 8,000 or so. But then there's another, let's say 16 to 20,000 or so packages that people keep on their GitHub repositories, and another dozen or so thousands that folks keep in other code repositories. And so there are tons and tons of these things out there. And in fact, the vast majority of packages available aren't even hosted through CRAN anymore because it's become so popular to write your own. So the one we're going to be looking for here is on CRAN. It's one of those that's sort of central to the modern workflow in R and RStudio, and it is the tidyverse. If I start to type tidy, T-I-D-Y, you'll see that about 1,000,001 of these pop up. That's because there are tons of packages that are tidy something, because everybody relies so heavily on the tidyverse these days. From things like styling your code to doing better, smoother data manipulation and improved graphical analysis and data visualization. We're going to keep typing here to get to where we want, and you'll see that by the time we get to the E, the only one left standing is the tidyverse. That's the one we want. I'm going to click on that. I would like to install all of the dependencies along with that, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit the install button. You'll see that this is going to download by default to my documents folder in an R folder inside of that. That'll be the same on most of your computers if you're using Windows. Those paths, of course, will be slightly different if you're using a Mac or a Linux-based operating system. I'm going to go ahead and hit install. Oh, goodness. No, I'm not. I'm going to restart R real quick. Session, clear workspace. Yes, include hidden objects. And then maybe if we could just restart R. The reason why I'm doing this is that usually when packages throw warnings like that, it means you have the potential to do some damage by reinstalling over a current version that's currently in use. All right, so now I'm going to start again. Install packages. I'm going to search tidyverse. Install. And now we'll see that some code is being run, and that's being output to the console so that we can see what's going on. You see that R went out and looked at this URL, the CRAN URL, and it knows that I have a Windows operating system, and it went and grabbed this compressed file, much like the compressed file that you downloaded with the workshop data. It brought that onto my computer, put it in a special folder, and now I have access to that. You do need an internet connection to install packages, unless you have those zip files locally. Once you have that on your computer, you can test the install by typing the code here on line 7. I'm going to use the library function to load the entire tidyverse into my active R session. Now these files are all out there on my computer, ready to be called up at a moment's notice. What I'm doing when I do this is calling them up by name and saying, R, give me the access to all the functions in the whole tidyverse. So let's run that, and you'll see that there's some output associated with that as well. Okay, so I've loaded the tidyverse package from a library on my computer. This is what we call that collection of files locally. And you can see that it's attached a number of packages. These are ranged from the ggplot2 package, which is for plotting, to the dplyr package for data manipulation and everything in between. You'll also notice some conflicts here. There's a function called filter inside of dplyr, that dplyr package, and this actually conflicts with a filter function that's in the stats package, which is distributed as part of base R. This isn't a big deal for the most part. R is just letting us know, hey, you may run into some issues with this. Maybe you should be specific about which you're using when you go to use it. So one way to be specific is to type the name of the function as attached to the package from which it originates. In this case, the filter function is inside of the dplyr library. So if I type dplyr : filter, R will know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm being explicit there. Not like swearing, but like being clear. If you have questions about what any of those functions do and many of those packages, at any time you could go into your code or the console and type $filter, for example. And if I want to be explicit, I could say dplyr : filter. And this will bring up a help file. We'll look at help files in a separate video. Till then, enjoy your library loads.